And with Sydney, we're all headed here. Now, they're about to arrive. Thirlmere is in the Highlands south of Sydney, just far enough out of town to justify a decent run in steam. You can't spend a day here without realising what the excitement of old railways and steam itself is all about. It's the opening day of the steam season, a day for polishing and pride, a day when even the most carefully preserved old locos get just a little bit extra care and attention. As even the keenest steam enthusiast knows, he's really only here as a minder. The locos are the stars of this show. This is a day for riding on and looking at, listening to and talking about just one subject. The steam locos we never knew we valued until they were nearly lost. There's a big static display too. It preserves a wide and remarkable range of both locos and carriage sets. An event like this leaves you in no doubt that we still love our old trains. And if we do, maybe one reason is they gave such valiant service. Iron horse isn't quite enough. Iron workhorse is closer to the truth. This Stevenson loco entered service in 1864. It was retired a century later in 1964. An Australian Railways grandfather, father and son could well have driven the same engine. Among the relics preserved here, there are reminders that our railways once met every kind of need for transport. There was a train and a carriage for every purpose. Not only travelled by train, it was also sorted on board. Racehorses and their strappers travelled by train. The mighty Farlap once rode in this very carriage. Convicted prisoners also travelled by train to jail. In their heyday, steam trains hauled goods of all descriptions. They could even take along a crane in case of trouble. This one's hand-operated and nicknamed Hernia. A Pullman sleeping car. Vintage 1891, but not much different from the ones I remember in the 1960s. Didn't know they were so old. Wash basin here, water jug, a ladder to climb up to the top. Even sitting up, a Pullman car was quite a great way to travel. These carriages were full of craftsmanship, as Arthur Tubby showed me.
First and second class seats. Pullman carriages were ordered from America, and they're a vast improvement over the British-style carriages that were in use at the railways at that time. They're much bigger, much airier, the clerestory-type roof. We'd probably say the glamour went out of rail travel when the diesel locomotive arrived.
Yeah. The new carriages and so on are much more streamlined, but this certainly represents glamour, doesn't it?
It does. You've got workmanship went into these carriages. You've got creature comfort, a bit of style and a bit of class, I suppose you'd call it.
And the chance to sit back for a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, and make friends with your human beings.
Yes, you weren't worried about how quickly you could get from Sydney to Melbourne. It was an adventure that you knew was going to take 2 or 3 days, so you sat back and enjoyed it.
The vintage days of railway.
Exactly.
The truth is, of course, as I discovered back at the zigzag, there's really only one place to travel, on the footplate. So that's how I'm going to travel home. Well, some of the way, to Australia's heart, Alice Springs. Most of the heavy freight. Camels were ideal. They drank less water and they could carry huge loads. We imported the camels and we also imported their drivers from Baluchistan and Afghanistan. They came to be nicknamed the Gans and they blazed a camel trail from South Australia to the centre. So, when a railway was pushed to Alice Springs in Australia's heart, naturally, it too became known as the Ghan. There have been a few Ghan trains. This is the latest. It's a modern train that still provides a romantic journey. Partly because of where it goes, partly because it does the trip in style. The whole vast outback rolls past your window. If you get sick of that, there's some time to make new friends as well. When Australian National introduced the new Ghan, they also built a new track for it to run on. That left the old Ghan line more or less stranded. But two stretches of that line have been restored by enthusiasts. They run very different trains, and we're going to ride on both of them. 40 years ago, Quorn, in the foothills of the Flinders Ranges, was a busy railhead. These days, it's usually a much quieter town. The volunteers who keep this railway running mostly come from Adelaide, over 300 kilometres south. In fact, on this particular long weekend, they've come from all over Australia. In the old days, a trip on the Ghan started with an overnight stop in one of Quorn's many hotels and with an early morning call. Sleepy-eyed, you struggled down to the station to start a journey that 3 days later might find you in Alice Springs. Although the first one we're going to ride on here actually never went as far as us. Everywhere I've been on this journey, the eyes of old railway buffs grow moist and misty at the mention of one particular train. It starts from here. It's not the only train operated by the volunteers of the Pitchy Ritchie Railway, but it is the star of their show. They call it the coffee pot. When the coffee pot runs, and that's not often, it brings people from miles around. Built in Britain in 1905, the coffee pot is the only surviving steam rail motor of its type anywhere in the world. The coffee pot began its working life on this line. A commuter train running between what were then much busier little towns in the Flinders Ranges. Restoring it to this pristine condition took 8,000 hours of work. The coffee pot isn't the only old train that runs from Quorn. In fact, every steam weekend, the Pitchy Preservation Society fires up a loco that couldn't be a greater contrast. Big and powerful, this W-class loco was one of the last to enter Australian service. The carriage it pulls is actually older than the loco itself. These are original Gann cars. Now, the original old Gann was a day train. Travellers stopped overnight not only in Quorn, but at other out towns along the way. By day, they made the best of fairly Spartan accommodation. Not that it worries anyone today. On a long, flat outback run, the steep climb through the Flinders Ranges was always what it still is, a highlight of the trip. It's just as well for today's Pitchy Ritchie Railway that the people who built this line a century ago built it to last. Mind you, I notice we're not exactly charging across, but that's probably to give us time to admire the view. Or maybe just so our driver has time to wave to fans who turn up in droves, even out here. Old Gann reached the centre. Here, right in the heart of Australia, the Gann Preservation Society operates both sit-up and sleeping cars from the old Gann. They run on 30 kilometres of track that winds up in Alice Springs. Well, we're heading for the centre on the Gann. Alice Springs, I'm coming on the Gann. Hand me up my stockman saddle, I'm going back among the cattle. Alice Springs, here I come on the Gann. Oh, the driver up the front, he's a mighty man. And to get there Friday morning is his plan. But the old train's got some rattles, she's fought some hectic battles, so we might arrive on Sunday on the Gann. And I'm heading for the centre on the Gann. Alice Springs, I'm coming on the Gann. The Gann was never a train to maintain a tight schedule. In this harsh country, it was unusual for the train to be stopped by sand drifts, floods, or washouts along the way. Passengers sometimes found themselves camped along the track until it could be cleared. These unscheduled stops all became part of the old Gann legend. Another delay. The nice thing on the old trains is that in the final analysis, the timetable doesn't really matter. Let me tell you about the lady who once travelled on the old Gann. She got on at Quorn and she kept saying to the conductor, when do we arrive in Alice Springs? When do we arrive in Alice Springs? He kept telling her. Finally, she came up very agitated and she said, look, when do we arrive in Alice Springs? And he said, why do you need to know? She said, I'm due to have a baby. He said, well, madam, you shouldn't have got on if you were so close to being confined. And she said to him, I wasn't even pregnant when I got on. So now I'm almost home. Not entirely thanks to the old GAN, although it has brought me some of the way. And even here in Alice Springs, hundreds of kilometres from anywhere else, the steam fans are out in force. The enthusiasts who keep these old railways running deserve a reward, and they certainly do. I think they get it every time they take their trains out on the track. As I said at the start of our journey, most of these old railways don't really take us anywhere at all, except back to the past. But when it comes to trains, maybe the past is where we'd like to travel. Right to the stand, this land Australia, take her as she is, her moods, her mysteries, mother of us all, beneath the southern cross, in her frame of peaceful sea.
Make my life a living hell.
She's in love and he's all charm.
I twinkled, sir.
It's a romance that's out of control. Mum's not impressed.
Pregnant.
And